Hey team, Jack Delosa here. Australia's largest and most transformational event, exclusively for 6, 7 and 8-figure business owners, the Unconvention, is back. The Unconvention was voted the top 3 events in the world by Entrepreneur magazine. At the Unconvention, you're going to hear from the world's best entrepreneurs all on the one stage whose businesses are worth a collective $8.5 billion. You'll be hearing from Lorna Jane Clarkson from Lorna Jane, Larry Diamond from ZipPay, Samantha Wills from Samantha Wills Jewelry, and myself, Jack Delosa, as well as many, many more. You'll walk away from this day with real-world insights from people with been there, done that experience based on the unconventional strategies we're employing today to thrive in business in 2021 and beyond. Now, a very limited number of tickets are available to attend both in person and digitally, so head to www.the-entourage.com/unconvention to get your ticket now.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the Make It Happen show, where it's time for you to make it happen. In these implementation sessions, we're joined by an industry expert who will take you through in detail how to make it happen in your business. These are full of implementable actions, so get your pens ready, take notes, and be ready to apply these to your business. Let's get into it.
Hey team, the Entourage is turning 11, and as such, I thought I'd collate my core principles in terms of how do you build an 8-figure business that is scalable, sustainable, and most importantly, can grow beyond you. The Entourage reached 8 figures in 2015 after starting the company in 2010. And then due to government regulations in the education sector, which was a space we ventured into for a couple of years, changes to that space in 2016 meant that we actually went back to being a 7-figure business for a couple of years and then got back to that 8-figure mark in more recent years for the second time. So having built businesses that have reached 8 figures, as well as having invested in businesses that have reached 8 figures, 9 figures, and even 10 figures. I was an early investor in an Australian company that recently became a unicorn, which is a business that goes from 0 to $1 billion inside of 10 years. And so having built 8-figure businesses, having invested in 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses, these are my core 11 lessons I've learned scaling businesses to 8 figures and beyond. Let's get into it. Principle 11. Each stage is going to require a different style of management and leadership. And let me explain what I mean by that. When a business is between 0 and 100K in annual revenue, it requires a different style of management to when a business is from 100K to $1 million in annual revenue, which requires a significantly different approach to when a business is doing over $1 million or up to the $10 million mark. 0 to 100K, we need to be improvising. We need to be interacting with consumer. We need to be making it up as we go along. And there's not a lot of value to planning because things change so frequently. And so if you can imagine a business from 0 to 100K is all about go to market, interact with consumer. Don't plan too much. Don't spend too much time on processes and systems. You don't need them yet. And the business is going to change so much that by the time the system is written, it will no longer be relevant. From 100K to $1 million, we need to focus primarily on sales and marketing, and often to the detriment of operational perfection and operational excellence. Operational imperfection is almost a necessary evil from 100K to $1 million. However, when we get to $1 million, particularly 2 or 3 million, we now need to start placing more emphasis on those areas which I just told you not to worry about before you got there, right? And so we do need to start worrying about infrastructure. We do need to start worrying about systems, structure, strategic planning, operational planning. Everything that you should not have done when you begun are the very things that you need to now start doing when you're reaching 7 and 8 figures. So understand that as a business goes through different stages, it requires a different style of management and leadership. The number one glass ceiling I see on 7-figure business owners is that the business is now doing 2 million, 4 million, 8 million, whatever it might be, and it's still being managed the same way it was when it was doing 400K a year, 600K a year, 800K a year. As a business evolves and matures, as must your management and leadership style with it. Principle number 10. when you get to the $1 million mark, when you hit 7 figures, right? So you're on the way to that 8-figure mark. The number one paradigm that needs to shift is you need to start thinking who, not how. As the business grows and the business grows and the business grows and the business grows, it gets to a point where the business is now too large for one person to wrap their arms around. There is simply more of everything right across the business. And inevitably what we find is when an entrepreneur gets to the 7-figure mark, so again, they're on the journey to getting to an 8-figure business, what the entrepreneur has stopped doing is everything that they were great at, driving the business forward, shaping the organization, developing and driving the business towards a very compelling vision. And they've started to do everything but that. The entrepreneur is buried in spreadsheets. They're optimizing CRMs. They're writing processes. They're putting out daily fires. They're dealing with HR issues. They're managing immediate cash flow. The entrepreneur has become operations manager at best and admin assistant at worst. And so as we go up the growth curve, the core fundamental paradigm needs to shift from when we're in that startup mode, when we're in 6 figures or doing early 7 figures, it's like as the business requires more, our solution to that as entrepreneurs is we will personally do more. And so as it needs more marketing, as it needs more sales, as it needs more customer delivery and customer care, as it needs more operational sophistication, historically, your solution to that was the business needs more, therefore I'll just do more. It's this whole, if we want 1 unit of output, the entrepreneur thinks that they need to deliver and put in personally 1 unit of input. That is the fundamental paradigm shift that needs to change. We need to stop thinking, how do I do this? And start thinking, how do I best create an ecosystem that empowers and enables other people to do this, often better than I would be able to on a consistent basis. So we're starting to build strategy. We're starting to build structure. We're starting to build infrastructure where 1 unit of input from the entrepreneur can create literally 1,000 units of output for the business. Now, when we start to build businesses through this paradigm, everybody benefits. The customer benefits because the organization is now a lot more streamlined because it's not bottlenecked by what one person can do. The team benefits because you're now building things out and they're no longer bottlenecked by what one person can do. And ultimately, the company benefits because the scale is not restricted, again, by what one person can do. And so when you get to the early 7-figure mark, you need to start thinking who, not how. Principle number 9. We need to move from technician to entrepreneur. As entrepreneurs, we can be wearing any number of 4 hats. We can be wearing the hat of the technician. Now, the technician is the person or the people with their hands on the tools, right? The people doing the do. We can be wearing the hat of the manager. And the manager is the person managing the people with their hands on the tools, right? The person managing the people with their hands on the tools and often contributing to the work that they're overseeing as well. We can be wearing the hat of a leader, which is very distinct from manager. Leadership is this: to what degree are my people intrinsically motivated to perform? It is very different and distinct from management. Management is head, leadership is heart. The 4th hat that we can be wearing is the hat of entrepreneur. Now, entrepreneur in a strict definition is perhaps a lot more operationally diluted than what you may have thought previously. If you're just wearing the hat of entrepreneur, your role in the business is literally, Mr. or Mrs. CEO, send me a board pack 7 days before the board meeting. I'll contribute questions and agenda items. I'll help you with high-level strategy. I'll make sure we stay on path to high-level strategy. If you need networks, call me. If you need capital, call me. Here are the keys, drive. Right? That's entrepreneur. If you're purely in entrepreneur mode, you're probably working in and on, more on, but both, cumulatively maybe 2 hours a fortnight. Right? Please write this down, guys. Entrepreneurs build assets. Entrepreneurs build assets. And we build assets that can operate without us. Move yourself up this ladder from technician to manager to leader to entrepreneur, right? To get to a point where you are able to spend 100% of your time wearing the hat of entrepreneur, guiding the organization, strategizing the growth of the company, envisaging where the company can go over the next 10 years, and building it as an asset that can operate without you. How do we ascend up this ladder from technician to entrepreneur? The answer is two things: strategy and structure. And what's the framework we build strategy and structure through? Principle number 8. 8-figure businesses have developed 6 elements. I'll say that again. 8-figure businesses have developed 6 elements. This is literally the blueprint for building a business that is scalable and sustainable. See, here's the thing. It's easy to drive growth for a temporary period of time in a way that's unstructured and that doesn't really stand the test of time. What we need to be doing as CEOs and entrepreneurs is building companies that are cross-functional and that are well-structured, that allow you to both drive growth and enable that growth concurrently. And we do all of that by driving and developing the 6 elements. Now, what are they? Look at your business as a workflow, right? Not to take the romance out of it too much, but look at it as a production line, right? We go out into the world and we generate interest and attention. We call that marketing. So that's the first element, is marketing. That interest and attention then walks through the door, for most of us metaphorically speaking, for some of you literally. At that point, it's our job to turn that interest and attention into a paid customer. That's element number 2, sales. Once we've marketed it, we've sold it, what do we then need to do? We then need to deliver the product, right? And so the third element is product development and delivery. And all of my businesses are service-based businesses. Over 50% of our member-based businesses are service-based businesses. But I use the term product unanimously because even when we have a service-based business, we should look to modularize it. We should look to bottle its magic such that we can scale its magic. So I use the term product pretty much unanimously. The third element is product development and delivery. Hey team, Jack here. Remember to get your ticket now for Australia's #1 event for 6, 7 and 8-figure business owners, the Unconvention, where you'll be hearing from the world's best entrepreneurs all on the one stage who are running businesses with a collective worth of $8.5 billion. If you want to accelerate profitable growth, if you want to build a business that can work without you, and if you want to harness and embrace the unconventional strategies the world's top entrepreneurs are using to thrive in 2021, make sure you get there. Head to www.the-entourage.com/unconvention. This will sell out. The fourth element, which becomes increasingly important as we go up the growth curve, is operations. And what I mean by operations is the internal workings of the business, the systems, the processes, the tech that underpins it, as well as how well are each of these 6 different elements talking to each other. We've marketed it, we've sold it, we're delivering the products we've developed, we're operationalizing it. There's really only one thing left to do, and that is to count and manage the money. The 5th element we call finance, right? And so I said there's 6 elements. We're really only doing 5 things. The 6th element is the element that brings those 5 things to life. The 6th element is our people. Inherent in our people strategy are our leadership principles, our management cadences, our meeting and planning and performance rhythms, right? Where sustainable scale happens is where we are developing in a structured way infrastructure, people, and process right across these 6 elements in such a way that we are building a well-rounded company. These 6 elements exist whether you are aware of them or not. They are determining how sustainable your company is whether you are aware of them or not. And the key to sustainable growth is to be able to balance these ongoing and often competing demands across marketing, sales, product development and delivery, operations, finance, and people. The goal here, team, the goal here is to become a well-rounded CEO, or if you've got a CEO in place, a well-rounded entrepreneur, building a well-rounded company. If you are doing all of these 6 things effectively, and you're doing all of them thoroughly, and you're doing all of them in a way that's considered, then you will be driving seriously sustainable growth. Which leads me to principle 7. All growth is sales and marketing led. Along the journey of your growth curve, there will inevitably be points and periods of plateau where you've been growing, at an accelerated rate, and then you hit a point where that growth starts to plateau. This is always diagnosable to a lack of growth in your sales and marketing firepower. Often what happens is going from, let's say, 100K to $1 million is the entrepreneur focuses a lot on sales and marketing because you have to in order to drive growth, in order to tilt the needle and get the revenues up. And then what happens is the business gets to 1, 2, 3, $4 million, whatever it might be. And the demands of the business internally, the internal demands become so much that the entrepreneur who was once out driving growth when the business was doing 6 figures, maybe early 7 figures, has gotten sucked into the vortex to such a degree that they kind of put their head up 2 or 3 years later and go, our growth has actually plateaued over the last couple of years. And it's often not until we have a conversation around it that they identify they used to be doing things that were driving growth. And as they got sucked into the internal operations, as they got sucked into that vortex, they started to neglect sales and marketing, which, prompted a plateau in their growth. And so it's really important to understand, team, that even if you have the best product in the world, all growth is sales and marketing led. If you're not growing at the rate that you would like to, or your growth is plateauing, sales and marketing is where you need to start looking. Principle 6, know your style. Know your style. There are 2 styles of operators that exist inside of organizations, or at least that should exist inside of an organization if it's going to be scalable and sustainable. And it's imperative that you know which one you are. If you do not, it will inhibit your growth and the growth of your company forever. And I do not say that lightly. And if you do understand which style you are, then you're able to complement your style by surrounding yourself with the right people. So let's talk about these 2 different styles. And this is actually from a book called Rocket Fuel. The 2 different styles, team, are, and I want you to write them down. Number 1 is visionary, and number 2 is integrator. In businesses that are sustainable and scalable, we have visionaries and we have integrators. Let's talk about the characteristics of a visionary. A visionary is somebody that sees the future. The visionary is typically a dreamer. The visionary loves the dream of their business more than they actually love the actual business as it exists today. Visionaries see the big picture. We love big problems and we love big opportunities. Visionaries are not good with resource allocation, and I include time in that, meaning we think everything can be done by tomorrow regardless of resource, right? Visionaries are impulsive. We can kind of set off in a particular direction for 60 to 90 days max, then we get bored and we want to go in a different direction. Visionaries are impulsive, right? Visionaries generate ideas. If we look at an integrator obsesses over operational perfection. The degree to which a visionary loves the dream of the business, the integrator loves the operational detail of the business today. The degree to which a visionary is big picture thinker, likes big problems, big opportunities, the integrator loves detail. The degree to which a visionary is inconsiderate of resources, meaning I think we can do everything by tomorrow and I don't see why anyone should have a problem with that. An integrator is actually good at planning and allocating resources accordingly so that we actually have thought through milestones that are achievable and that are considerate of resources. Whereas a visionary is impulsive, an integrator brings sustain, maintain. An integrator is a good anchor. An uneducated visionary that is not aware of their visionariness will cause organizational whiplash, meaning the visionary will go, team, we're going in this direction and it's super exciting and we're going over there. And everyone will follow the visionary because people love following visionaries, right? Visionaries tend to be, charismatic in their own unique way, whatever that might mean. And people like following them. And so your team will follow you in that direction for 2 months and you'll say, stop, Sorry, guys, I know I said we're going that way. We're actually going this other way over here. And everyone will chase you in that direction for 2 or 3 months. Then you'll say, stop. Sorry, guys, I know I said we're going over there, but I was meditating and, my soul spoke to me and said we actually need to go in this direction over here. And then everybody will start running in the other direction. And then 2 months later, you will say, stop. Sorry, guys, I know I said the soul thing, but I was wrong. We actually need to go in this other. And so what occurs is this organizational whiplash where people get whiplash by the visionary going in too many different directions. Who can relate? I'm actually envisaging so many entrepreneurs watching this video or listening to this podcast right now, smiling and nodding along, going, yeah, that's me. And so you need to identify, are you a visionary? Are you an integrator? Or are you one of the fortunate few that has a combination of the two? Principle number 5. This is a tricky one. The people who are right for your business from 0 to 500K are different from the people who are right for your business from, let's say, 500K to 2 mil, are different from the people who are right from 2 to 10 mil. And the reality is, particularly if you're going along that growth curve in a way that is quite quick, if you're going along the growth curve in an accelerated fashion, which I know many of you are, 80% of the team may not keep up. And I battled with this for years, and I know every entrepreneur does. Particularly as you're moving through like 0 to 100K, 100K to a mil to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 8, 8 to 10. The style and the nature of the business changes so quickly that most people in your team won't be able to keep up. As I said, I battled with this for years because in the early years, you have people that are so loyal to the business. And you probably have that through the later years as well. But particularly early on, you've got people that are so loyal to the business. So much so that, if they were with you when you were doing sub $1 million, you were probably paying them less than market wage as well. And in startup, everything's super exciting. And so everybody's going above and beyond. And so you've got these people that are loyal, that are probably not being paid what they're worth, that are going above and beyond. And when you were doing 800K in revenue, they were perfect. But you're now doing 2 or 3 mil in revenue and they're not. And you're now doing 4 or 5 million in revenue and they've actually become really bad. And some of them are actually your best friends, right? As I said, I battled with this for years. And I probably held on to some people, for too long out of misplaced loyalty. And I'll explain in a moment why I think it's misplaced. Because what will happen is the rest of the team will understand that they're no longer perfect for the role. The rest of the team will probably understand that they're only still here or only still in the role that they are because they're friends with you. And the example that sets for the rest of the team is, it's okay if you don't perform, provided you're friends with the founder or the CEO, right? Which is not the culture that you want to establish. And so after wrestling with this literally for years, the point I got to was an understanding that my loyalty needs to lie with the team in its entirety. My loyalty needs to lie with the business in its entirety. My loyalty cannot lie with any one individual, including myself. Principle 4, expect hard times. Expect hard times, they will come. If you're on a journey to build a business to the point where it's doing 8 figures, you will come up against extended periods of time where you will be so challenged and you will question yourself so much and you may even want to quit for extended periods of time. You need to understand that is par for the course. You need to understand that is almost unavoidable. when your business gets into hard times, it's not just commercial, it's not just financial. There's a lot of, it's personal, right? For the founder, for the owner, for the entrepreneur, it's personal. Even for me, when I was the age of 24, I bought my mum's house so that she could live somewhere without paying a mortgage or paying rent, essentially helping her to retire. Now, I had a mortgage against that property, and so now I was, 2016, how old was I? 5 years ago. So, 28, 29. And it was categorically looking as if the business was going to go under. I had a mortgage against Mum's house, a house that I owned that Mum lived in. And when you carry bank debt in your business, they cross-collateralize it against your mortgage. So if the business did go under, which it was looking like it was categorically going to, then Mum would have been homeless, and I wouldn't have had the funds or the cash flow to support her beyond that period, right? And so you literally could not have written a worse script. I was meeting with administrators and liquidators throughout this period, which are people that wind up businesses, and they were all saying the same thing. They were all saying, you cannot trade out of this. This is too dire. You guys are fucked. You're gone. And I just refused to accept that as a reality. And so, I gave us about a 10% chance of surviving the next 3 months. And if we survived the next 3 months, I gave us about a 10% chance of surviving the next 12 months. So all in all, I probably allocated about a cumulatively 1% chance of survival to the company. And it was the beginning of an era where it was an incredibly difficult 2, 3, or 4 years that followed. Now, during those periods, all you can do is say to yourself, this is not going to be fun. I may not have fun as I persevere through this particular challenge, but I will get through it. I will accept no different reality. And so it's one foot in front of the other, in front of the other, in front of the other on a daily basis for many years at a time in this particular instance. If you fast forward 2.5 to 3 years later, we were more profitable than ever. We were growing faster than ever. Our members were more mature than ever because we were more mature than we had been in the past. Our member success stories were greater than ever. Our culture was significantly better than ever. We had grown up, and we had grown more in 3 years than we had in the previous 8. We were now more considerate of risk management. We were now more considerate of the downside. We were smarter. We were wiser. We were faster. We were more well-trained. It was literally the hardest 3 years of my life, but I have grown more in those 3 years than I had the previous 30. And so expect hard times. They will come. But if you don't quit, they will make you better. Expect them, and when they come, lock in. Principle number 3, learn to rest, not quit. Learn to rest, not quit. When I say learn to rest, not quit, I am totally familiar with and understand and get that we don't always have the time or the opportunity, or we're not in the financial position to rest right there and then. And so one of the things that I needed to learn how to do was build practices into my everyday life that enabled me to continue to get the most out of myself. This is when I really started to lean into meditation. This is when I really started to lean into hot and cold immersion. This is when I really started to lean into training and exercising. This is when I really started to lean into eating well, right? And minimizing anything that wasn't nutritious in my diet. I literally had to take my discipline and my entire lifestyle up several notches in terms of my ability to take care of myself in order to just sustain, let alone to optimize, right? And so, however, you ultimately do get to a point where you can rest, right? And we want to learn to rest, not quit. Principle number 2, don't lose yourself. Don't lose yourself. I was having a conversation with a dear friend recently, and we were talking about how in business, whether you are going through heightened periods of growth or an extended plateau or a period of decline, it's really easy to lose yourself. she had had an ex-partner that had gone through many years of hyper-growth in a particular business and brought the Lamborghini and did all of the things that, young male entrepreneurs do when they get their first taste of financial success. And she said he lost himself. He lost himself in the growth. He lost himself in the money. And in doing so, the growth of the business was not sustained. In fact, it ultimately started to go backwards and that business actually failed because the entrepreneur lost their head as they were going through high growth periods. If you think about when a business plateaus, particularly if it's plateaued for many, many years, an entrepreneur can lose themselves because they get a little bit frustrated and a little bit bored and a little bit down because they don't see a path to ever achieving high growth again. And so they get a bit bored and they check out and they almost lose that fire in their belly. And then when an entrepreneur is in decline, like we experienced in 2016, everything is so bad that you can get into periods where you're just so all consumed by the challenges that are presented in the current circumstance that you start to lose touch and disconnect with self, right? And so at times business will be all consuming. If you're growing very steeply, it's all consuming. If you're going down or declining, it's all consuming. And you'll miss family time. You'll miss time with friends. You'll miss out on, sometimes weddings or babies being born, or hopefully not your babies being born, but, friends, family, babies being born or whatever it might be. And there's all these sacrifices that will almost out of necessity need to be made as we go through our journey in business. It's incredibly important that we learn the skill and the art of staying connected to self. And so even when you're going through periods of high growth, even when you're going through periods of high decline, making sure that you stick and stay on top of your personal rituals, the rituals that when you do, you fill up. The rituals that when you do, you connect with self. The rituals that when you do, it enables you to stay in touch with self. And that might be time with family. It might be time with kids. It might be meditation. It might be yoga. It might be exercise. It might be walking by the ocean. It might be playing guitar. It might be painting. It might be journaling. It might be sleeping. It might be reading. It might be drinking tea. Whatever it is for you, you need to know what your personal connection rituals are, and you then need to do them. I said earlier that when a business is going through hyper growth, we can lose ourselves. When a business is going through a decline, we can lose ourselves. You will get to a point where you transcend being absolutely dictated to by business performance, meaning the business will be able to go through periods of high growth without you thinking you're fucking awesome. The business will be able to go through periods of decline without thinking you're absolutely worthless and going into a mild depression, right? You want to get to a point where you've transcended the trends and the performance of your business or the world at large, where you are, as much as is possible, a whole and nurtured and loving and compassionate and joyful human being. And you want to live from that place. So there's nothing wrong with having a great car and having a great relationship and living in nothing wrong with any of that. My question is, what fuel are you using? And the importance of staying connected to self, regardless of what's going on in the external. Which brings me to principle number one, which is principle number one of building an 8-figure business that is scalable and sustainable and that can grow beyond you, is that you can. You can do this. You can build a business to any size that you choose. If you accept that you need to be a person that is always learning, if you accept that you're going to need to change tact to find the right model, the right product or service suite, the right marketing plays, the right sales processes, the right team, people are going to come and go. It's going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. If you accept that it's not going to be linear, You can build a business to whatever size that you choose. So I say the same thing to you guys as entrepreneurs, as business owners, or you might be an executive, or you might just be a high growth human being, pursuing a very worthwhile career, or you might be an artist. But you can play this game at any level you choose. You don't choose by sitting there, crossing your fingers and going, I kind of sort of maybe one day want to do it and I'm going to try and manifest it. You choose what level you play at by the level of capability you consciously develop. I'll say that again. You choose what level you play at by the level of capability you consciously develop. Everything's a skill. Building a business is a skill. Being a visionary is a skill. Leading people is a skill. Building an 8-figure business is a skill. Building a 9 or a 10-figure business is a skill. It's all a skill. And if you haven't built an 8-figure business that's scalable and sustainable that can grow beyond you yet, all that tells me is you haven't yet developed the capabilities. But today we've spoken about 11 of the core fundamental lessons that if you embody just these 11 principles, if you embody just these 11 lessons, then you will, believe me, have the capability to build an 8-figure business that is scalable, sustainable, and that can grow beyond you. And so as I reflect over 11 years in Entourage and, probably 15, 16 years of business, the most fundamental underlying truth to absolutely everything I could share with you guys is that you can. You can play this game at any level you choose. You can scale to whatever degree you choose. You can grow into any character, in terms of the characteristics that you want to grow into, and any human that you choose to. You can. And so knowing that, just decide. Decide what level you want to play at in the next 5-10 years, and you may raise the bar. You might even bring the bar back at some points when you want to have a rest, or when you determine that that's not the right path for you, or whatever it might be. But decide on what you want. Decide on who you need to become in order to build it. Decide on what are the capabilities you need to start developing in yourself and your team. And principle number 1, guys, is you absolutely can. You can do whatever the fuck you choose. Just decide. So team, those are the 11 core principles for how do you build an 8-figure business that's scalable, sustainable, and that can grow beyond you. If you're listening to this on a podcast or watching it on the video, let us know in the comments below what principle most applies to you. What principle was the biggest aha moment for you? Let us know in the comments below. I will be there, and I look forward to chatting with you all soon.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Make It Happen show. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And it doesn't need to end there. We've actually gone and grabbed a whole bunch of extra resources for you. Behind the scenes footage, videos from this and all the other episodes, as well as show notes that you can grab for free. Just head along to www.the-entourage.com/podcast and you can grab all those extra resources. Thanks for tuning in, and I cannot wait to introduce you to our next guest on the next episode.